You're looking at Varanus komodoensis, the Komodo dragon, an absolute apex predator. But its success isn't just about size and strength. It's about a deep strategic understanding of its environment. And today, we're going to break down exactly how it pulls this off. To truly understand this animal, you have to go to its home turf. Our research took us right into the heart of its territory, the rugged, challenging landscape of Rinca Island in Indonesia's Komodo National Park. This is a place where these ancient reptiles are the undisputed rulers. Okay, so before we go any further, let's set the stage. We're talking about the year 2000, which is when our fieldwork began. At that time, the Komodo population on Rinca Island was estimated at exactly 1,001 individuals. So our entire analysis, everything you're about to see, is focused on this very specific group. All of our work really boiled down to one big question. How does a large, cold-blooded predator like the Komodo dragon strategically use its landscape? I mean, how does it leverage all the different parts of its environment to not just survive, but to completely dominate? So let's dive in. Our laboratory wasn't some sterile building with white walls. It was the island itself. And the main stage for our observations was the savanna, which, believe it or not, makes up over 70% of Komodo National Park. This wide-open, grassy expanse is where the daily drama of survival really plays out. Now, you might just see grass, but for our study, this was crucial. Our vegetation analysis identified these specific grass species as the foundation of the whole ecosystem. And think about it. This is the stuff that feeds the Komodo's main prey, like Timur deer. So the health of this grass, it directly impacts the entire food web, right up to the top. And within this big savanna landscape, two totally different, contrasting microhabitats became the focus of our work. On the left, you've got the open savanna, exposed, not a lot of cover. And on the right, you see the dense, closed canopy of the island's forests. Now, these aren't just two different environments. For a Komodo, they're like two different tools in a survival toolkit. All right, so how on earth do you track a Komodo dragon all day and get reliable data? Well, we couldn't just wing it. We needed a method that was incredibly precise, something rigorous and repeatable to make sure our observations were totally objective. And that method is called focal animal sampling. It sounds technical, I know, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. You pick one single animal, that's our focal animal, and you just follow it. You record absolutely everything it does for a continuous period. What this gives you is an incredibly detailed, almost minute-by-minute diary of that one animal's life. Our protocol in the field was meticulous. I mean, we were disciplined. First, our day started when the dragons did. We'd follow a single Komodo from sunup to sundown. That's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Second, we were constantly recording every single behavioral state, from a tiny head tilt to a long-distance trek. And third, and this is the real key for our spatial analysis, every single time the dragon did something, we marked its exact location with a GPS. And after all that intensive work in the field, when we finally crunched the thousands of data points, a really fascinating pattern started to emerge. You could pretty much boil down a Komodo's entire day to a tale of two very different, almost opposite activities. We basically identified two key behavioral states. The first is istirahat, which is just resting. Think of it as power save mode. The dragon is totally still, conserving every last drop of energy. And its counterpart is menjelaja, or exploring. This is active mode, moving with purpose, burning through all that saved up energy. So which one did they do more? Well, the numbers don't lie. We recorded them resting a total of 72 times, but exploring a whopping 162 times. I mean, get this, they were actively on the move more than twice as often as they were just sitting still. But here's the thing, just knowing how often they moved is only half the story. The real aha moment, the big breakthrough, came when we overlaid that behavioral data with our GPS coordinates and our habitat map. This is where we connect the what with the where. And this revealed our central finding, the absolute heart of our research. A Komodo's activity is not random at all. It is incredibly strategic and directly tied to the landscape. For instance, that resting state is dirahat. It almost always happened under the dense cover of the forest. Why? Well, it's perfect for regulating their temperature and staying hidden. In sharp contrast, exploring and eating, that almost always happened out in the open savanna, which makes sense because that's where the food is. Our data was so precise, we even got to pinpoint their favorite hangout spots. The dragon showed a clear, undeniable preference for the shade of tamarind and kasambi trees.
So these specific trees, with their really thick canopies, weren't just trees. They were a critical resource, essential for their whole energy-saving strategy. So let's put all the pieces together. What does this all add up to? Well, what we're looking at here is not just a bunch of disconnected habits. No way. This is a unified, highly efficient, and honestly, pretty sophisticated survival strategy. It's a calculated balance of energy. Think of the cool, dense forest as a kind of charging station. The Komodo dragon goes there to rest, to conserve energy, and to avoid that brutal midday heat. Then, once it's charged up, it expends that stored energy purposefully, venturing out into the open, prey-rich savanna to patrol and hunt. They rest where it's safe and efficient, and they hunt where there is opportunity. It's that simple and that brilliant.
And this brings us to our final and I think most provocative question. What we've documented is an undeniably complex spatial strategy. But is this something an individual dragon has to learn through trial and error? Or are we witnessing something much deeper, a deeply ingrained instinct, a kind of cognitive map for survival, passed down and honed by millennia of evolution on these very islands? That's a question that invites us all to keep watching and to keep on learning.